So I'm going to talk to you about the Finnish Companion and the whole experience and adventure that led me to actually create this platform called the Finnish Companion. When I first moved to Finland, I actually met somebody who had been 15 years in Finland, yet didn't speak a word of Finnish. And that really got me curious on why. If you talk to anybody who has been learning Finnish, they would describe their experience as this. It's a complete nightmare. They crucify themselves. They jump off the cliff. It's a complete nightmare. And according to the United States Department of State Foreign Service Institute, who actually has a ranking of how difficult languages are, Finnish happens to be one of the most difficult, a little bit after Arabic, Chinese, and Japanese. And the reason is because there are inefficient and scattered Finnish learning resources. There's not one go-to Bible. If there are some people here who speak Spanish, Italian, French, or German, you might actually be familiar with those books. There's a very overwhelming conjugation. You can add, double a letter, it becomes a complete different meaning. You can take out a letter and it becomes another different meaning. So it actually is very important. And then there's very challenging phrase construction challenges. If you take out two dots, actually things can take also other meanings. And depending on what you mean, the word that follows also changes. And there's also very limited practice opportunities. Not only Finnish people are very nice, but introverts, but they are also so nice, they talk to you in English when you talk to them in Finnish. So the solution for someone like me who has moved to work in Finland was to learn Finnish very fast and very quickly. And the way for me to do that was kind of a gym buddy that helps you lift a heavier weight long enough so that you can actually develop the force to lift it by yourself. This is literally the Finnish Companion. You have just enough muscle so that you can do it by yourself. But concretely, it's a website and an app that's been designed. And as Thais was talking about design thinking, I had the chance to also work on design thinking on the medical side 11 years ago. And I got to get familiar with how you need to understand the need of the final user. Back in the time it was doctors, in order to make something that is really relevant to them. So I applied those same principles to the Finnish Companion. And the Finnish Companion is 4 main blocks. It's a dictionary and a conjugator, reverse conjugator, word breakdown and pronunciation support. There's a very unique tool that allows you to practice and practice and practice and practice and do drills of conjugation until they become second nature. So it's called SisuDrills. And then there's a Finnish TV, real-time translation tool on the browser. And then there's teacher tools as well. So let's look, for example, at one of the features, word breakdown. If you know this and you can read it, you're a champion. This is the longest word in Finnish. We take it, we put it on the Finnish Companion, and we go from this to this. Lentokone suihkuturbiini motori apumekanico aliupseeri oppilas. You take another word. We can put it again in the Finnish Companion, and it becomes easier to read. Terveyskeskusmaksu. The reverse conjugator is also a very, very useful tool. It turns out that when I was working at the hospital, when I moved to Finland, I was reading at the screen, and there were so many words that were already conjugated, I couldn't figure out what they meant. So I would try to go on a translator, I would try to look them up, no results on dictionaries, because I couldn't even know what's the stem of that word, what's the origin of that word. And there was no tool that did that. I looked for books. There were no books that did that in 2022. So I made it myself. You can put any word in any form, and it actually tells you what it's coming from. You write kavelivat, and it tells you it's the third plural of kavella. This is another example. You can type any word. It can actually conjugate it. So you type, for example, you type tehda, mina, han, and past, and it says han teki. If you want to know how a word is conjugated, then it gives you actually the template. SisuDrills. So SisuDrills is where I actually started to play with Vue and trying to make components. And as Thais has said, and I remember the first time that we spoke, she did ask me actually, what do you mean by component? And for me, back at the time when we were talking, this was a component. And the idea was that the app would generate words and asks you to conjugate them, to be more concrete. Let's see if this works. Internet. Okay. Connectivity. Now. So you get to choose what you want to practice. These are the words that I would like to conjugate. And it gives you similar words. So punainen, nainen, keltainen, and so on. There's also feedback with sound and icons and colors and so on.
Korotusta.
And so on. Etc. If you make an error, then it blocks the input. So I did that just for me. But it turns out things were getting in another dimension, which I didn't know. I started to make other components as well in terms of how to structure a sentence. So I would actually generate generic word, and I would have to place them in the right place and pick the right word. And then Finnish TV subtitles. When you move to Finland, turns out that there's a very fantastic service called Yle Areena. It's free Netflix, because it's paid by taxes and public money. But most of the Finnish content is actually in Finnish subtitles, eventually Swedish subtitles. And that's an issue because they speak very fast, and it's written also very fast. They speak in dialect, murre, and it's also in murre, and you're trying to keep up, and you don't know what's going on. And it actually becomes a challenge if you're someone who has just moved to Finland or is learning Finnish. So, again, I was curious, and I ended up doing this real-time subtitle translator, which worked actually on the user's browser. So it was browser extension, had nothing to do with Yle's servers or anything. And started to play with my own translation model, and turned out that it was doing very well. So Finnish Companion is actually a free tool to use, and it is meant to be a social enterprise and a not-for-profit with a very, very long-term goal and sustainable goal to make Finnish more accessible and affordable to people who really want to learn it or have difficulties and challenges to learn it. And it's also built on certain values that are, at least maybe we share them, but they are very, very personal to me. And that's minimalistic and useful design, meaning no bloatware, no ads, and please no gamification. Please no locked levels for the user to use. If he wants to jump, he can jump. Those were kind of the values. There's a certain business model that's mostly built around sponsorship, grants, and consulting. And turns out that the Finnish Companion was a winner in one startup competition that, in a very surprising way, because it was not expected to win, and it actually ended up being all over the press, and that helped a lot. Now we have about 3,000 unique users monthly for a not-for-profit platform that didn't have any users 5 months prior to that. It was something very rewarding. So the question now, how did it happen? Turns out that Tuuli, when she was trying to introduce me, she said that she didn't know what to say. And I do indeed describe myself as a polymath or as a multi-potentialite. But the reality is that embracing different fields and multiple disciplines to actually transfer certain skills to another field and apply the same logic to improve it or innovate is actually fun. I'm a medical doctor. I used to work at Google's Singularity University in Silicon Valley, and I've been actually a professional pianist and composer since about 20 years now, and speak many languages. So there were actually pre-existing ingredients. And that's the thing that I'm not a professional coder. I didn't go to university to study coding, but I have been coding since I was a kid on BASIC and Atari. And then I started to use Delphi. So if you're looking for some replacement on visual drag and drops, you can try Delphi. And then I started to get into PHP4, and then front page, and Dreamweaver, and making websites, and then interactivity with Flash Player and Director. It was a very exciting time back then. And the other aspect is professional pianist. But here's one thing. The common point between pianists, tennis players, and special forces is that they have something that has a neuroscientific basis where they have to repeat and repeat and repeat and repeat until it becomes second nature and it becomes automation. When you see a professional pianist on stage playing a very difficult piece as if it's second nature, and you wonder how does he do it with his eyes closed, and he doesn't even look where he's putting his fingers, and he gets it so right and it's very fast. That's actually because there are hundreds of hours of rehearsal, nonstop every day for several months. And it's the same for tennis players and special forces. They've mastered the skill of going from nothing to becoming extremely proficient. They've mastered that science. And that's the pre-existing ingredients. You have coding, and there was some personal experience as a neuroscientist and medical doctor, and the art of piano. If I was a coder and not a doctor, probably I would have done something, but I wouldn't have really understood the neuroscientific basis. If I was a neuroscientist who didn't know how to code, then I wouldn't have been able to do it. So it slowly evolved, and that's how it started, actually. Those were the few first weeks when I was in Finland. I had a Google spreadsheet that had a Google script, and it was just doing Google Translate when I was in class. And then I would have this Google spreadsheet, and then later it evolved into an Airtable database, which I would put into flashcards. And then I developed my own plugin so that they sync into this database. And it started to become kind of a system. And then I built my own linguistic engine, built another engine as well. And this one would do very fast conjugation, reverse conjugation, as well as dictionary. The dictionary data was compressed into binary format, serialized into binary format in Kappa and Proto, so that it's really, really fast. I really cared about speed for some reason. And then there's the open API now that's public and can be used. And it actually, you can type any Finnish word, and it returns the readable version. So the endpoint here is readable. And then there's the Mac OS. If you're familiar with Mac OS Spotlight and Alfred, then this is kind of the equivalent. I call it Finnish Companion Ninja, because you're on the computer and the keyboard and you really want to do something very, very quickly. So you can do the reverse conjugation, you can do conjugation, anything that Finnish Companion can do. And it's shortcut on your operating system, not on the browser. This was built actually with React using, what is it called? Forgot again. Not Ionic, Electron. Electron is using Electron. And the bundle is about 500 megabytes. So it's a challenge, and I'm thinking to move it to something else. And this is also another approach using the same kind of approach as Notion, for example, where you would select the text, just press a shortcut or click on the bar. It would immediately do the translation. And then you would take a word, just add a suffix. It will give you the meaning of it. You can, and this is just on the keyboard while you're typing on your text editor or Word browser. For example, you can type anything, and then you would do real-time translation. Then you would take a word, and you're like, okay, could you please tell me the meaning of it? And you will get the dictionary definition. And then you want to conjugate something, but you don't know really what it is. So you say EEN by Vistyksen, for example, and so on. So I think that was with my, yeah. You get the point. And then a lot of people actually would recommend you, if you want to learn a language, to listen to the music of that language, to learn vocabulary. Turns out it's not because you listen repetitively to that music. It's, of course, because of the melody, but it's because you listen repetitively to it. And if it's a very viral music, then it adds even more. And that's another component we were prototyping with translated lyrics. And this is mobile compatible as well. This, and you keep in your mind "en pysty päätä," you would know that it means I can decide. So you're actually learning through the song. But the specific thing, the neuroscientific basis around this is that it's music under 1 minute. They have to be viral, crunchy music that really, really makes you want to listen it again and again and again. So it's good mini dopamine highs, so to say. And then there's also a mobile floating button. And the idea is that because Finnish is very challenging, then you have to surround it from every situation in your life, whether it's TV, whether it's on your mobile phone. So just by clicking on the bubble button, you actually get a quick window that you can prompt. You can even do the same as conjugation, punainen and partitiivi punaista, and do reverse conjugation or conjugation minä, past minä tein. And this is the browser extension for Yle Arena. So some of the actually TV shows actually don't have English subtitle.
No niin. Sitten voitte pikkuhiljaa alkaa oikoa käsiä, venytellä vähän se ja virota sieltä ihanasta loppuun.
Maksukanavalta.
So you can actually change the language.
Se paketti, joka on ennen kisoja, se oli tarjouksessa. Se oli jotain 20.
Se oli jotain 20. Eli paljonko se oli?
En mä muista. 30.
This is real time. There's no data kept or there's no data kept or anything. It does multiple languages. And then the design system. It turns out that I don't claim that this is a really professionally done design system, but it's slowly shaping into a design system now where we're looking into different parts, for example, as how would the drill look like. And turns out that we can, you see here that if someone types something correctly, but if they type something incorrectly, there's a red button as well. That is logged. And that is also kept in the user's profile for analysis. And they will know exactly where they're making mistakes so that they can address that directly. So we went from pre-existing ingredients of coding, medicine, neuroscience, and performance to actually building a Finnish learning ecosystem that's made of a core engine, a platform API, and additional apps, and a design system of components and what I would call tiny components. And this is the discussion that I had with Juho and a couple of other engineers 2 days ago during the workshop as well, where we discussed AI for front end. And it was very interesting discussions, and we had some thoughts. But this is, if I quickly switch here, what I would call the AI salad bar of ingredients. The idea is that you have tools that are available to you and then that you can just snap and reuse. I don't personally believe that there is one tool that is the holy grail. I think it's literally like a salad bar or sushi bar. You pick what you feel like in the mood and what will do the job. So for example, in terms of AI models, right now, it seems that GPT-4o and Claude 3 and Gemini are doing well. Each one of them has their own specificities, of course. There's a very interesting thing to watch, I think, called the small LLMs and the tiny LLMs for the use on the edge. I think those are also going to be very interesting because they are small in size and are pretty fast. You can, of course, rely on UI frameworks as you want them, and each programming language for its own niche. This is kind of the experience that was learned at least through the Finnish Companion platform. I don't believe that you can build front ends with Rust. I think also you have to iterate very quickly. And in terms of iterations and AI, I think Streamlit is a very good platform to use if you want to build very quick widget. It's not reactive, but very useful, as well as Lightning AI. And those are kind of what I would describe as tiny components or components to augment your app. There's the Notion-like intuitive UI where you have this bar that shows up and you click just on that magic button. Actually, if we go here to the Finnish Companion, to the SisuDrills, and then let's say we pick up a verb, say present first, indicative, and then say verbs that I use when ordering at the restaurant. So this is typical of a Notion-like kind of UI that would go back, and then you would I would like to practice exactly these verbs. And that's you go.
Minä tilaan.
And so on. And then I think there's the chat UI, of course, and the browser extension, the tiny bars that I mentioned, the auto-suggest bubble as well, Alfred-like commands as well, like the one that is here, so anything I don't know. Any suggestions? Huh? Salmon soup. Lohikeitto. And then if we take lohikeitto to the readable, lohikeitto, salmon soup. So the Alfred-like command palette, and then last but not least, I think those ghost predictions that you can also use to augment your apps, similar to Copilot and Gmail Smart Compose, and you can use them on any of your user interfaces. I believe that that's also the future. The challenge is that how you're going to get the suggestions behind. That was the very interesting topic that we had 2 days ago, and we were kind of like looking at the models that we can use and so on. You can use, of course, obviously LLMs, but you can also use your own models. But the bottom line is also that you don't necessarily need to focus on LLMs. LLMs aren't the single source of truth. They are not a magic bullet. You can use your own algorithms and so on. That's the engine, the linguistic engine that the Finnish Companion depends on. And also, LLMs can be very malicious. In fact, there was a very interesting cyber conference a couple of days ago at which I was, and turns out that malicious LLMs can actually also help you make malicious code and malware. So things to keep in mind is that you also have to take now into consideration that there are people who are using now LLMs to try to break into your apps and your servers and try to tamper into that. So this is one example, which I did just today when I was preparing the presentation. This is a normal ChatGPT. Doesn't work. And then very simple formula. Turns out that he gives you the recipe on how to make it. Same GPT, same account. So you should take that into consideration as well, that there are malicious people who are trying to actually actively look into vulnerabilities. So I think the Finnish Companion today is a learning tool. It's a design system. It's a mindset and a methodology, and a not-for-profit organization with a very specific purpose. We'll be releasing the Ninja app, the Alfred-like, very soon. The Android and the iOS app are going to be out as well. The Uli Arena browser extension also is going to be out. And then taking into consideration the Finnish dialects, which is the next level. That's another level. But I'm really glad today to be here with you and to share with you this adventure and story on how the Finnish Companion came to be. But I think more importantly, and I know that you are very tired, but one thing that you have to remember once you leave this room today, especially for our international people, is that you have learned how to pronounce the longest word of the hardest language ever. Lentokone suihku turbini motori apumekanico ali upseeri oppilas. Thank you very much.